be recorded. Okay. All right. So can I get a motion to move into open session? Brian, second. Okay. Jennifer, all in favor? All right. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. So it's item 2.1 and it's on page 77 of your packets. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So
Okay, John and Jennifer, second. So approved, okay. And then a motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Okay, and second, Jennifer. Oh, and Brian's going to be all in favor. All right, and item 4, are there any conflicts of interest with the agenda that we have? Okay, none? All right, noted. Okay, so our next item now is item 6.1, which is presentation on the Community Services Unit. So Sergeant David Hartley-Brown and Staff Sergeant Jim Fleming are going to be presenting to us. Thank you.
David's waiting at the bit apparently.
I know, it's very exciting.
I was away all last week, so I just got back, so I'm kind of all sorts of energy now. Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, it's Sergeant David Hartley-Brown, and I'm the supervisor with the Community Services Unit. And we've been asked to discuss the following questions. Jim? Here we go. Examining the increasing calls for service in Crescent Valley specifically, and the role of the Community Services Unit. Before we can go into that specifically, though, we need to look at a broader, things of what we're doing in community services and some of the work and statistical information is behind that. So Jim's just going to discuss that for a few minutes, and then I'll come back in.
Thank you, David. Keyword, few minutes, not true. The only suggestion I got yesterday was cut it back. I did cut it back, but this is important stuff. This answers a lot of questions and challenges going forward. We put a lot of work into this, and hopefully it spawns some good conversation and some understanding about what crime stats and what lies behind crime stats. Just bare bones, we're familiar with, no matter what source it comes from, StatsCan. This is StatsCan. The Crime Severity Index, which is actually a ranking of all different types of crime. So obviously, a homicide is more important. It's a higher ranking than a theft or a car problem. The Crime Severity Index has dropped for the last 10 years, and it's a steady decline. And the interesting thing about crime stats is right across the Western world, it's pretty much plummeting. It's going down, it's going down. So, we've talked about it, and to pull an analogy out that most of us understand, the other night the Sea Dogs lost 6-2. So they played really badly. Well, okay. They had the first 5 penalties, they were all 5-on-3s. Well, that changes the story a little bit. Probably the best 4 players were all out hurt. Oh, okay, that's a little bit different. So when you start looking at numbers, it gives you one picture, but as soon as you start looking what's behind that, the quality and understanding what's behind it, it gives you a different story. So yes, crime stats, Crime Severity Index has been plummeting really it's been since the mid-90s. This has been going down, and it continues that. And a lot of the latest research says this is expected to continue well into the mid-2020s and beyond. And we'll get into some of the theory behind that later about why that's happening. So to use official crime stats, this comes from the Home Office in the UK. They're in their branch of policing statistics. And they say, if you're going to use crime stats, this is how you use them. Okay? So it's useful in identifying trends of reported crime over a long period of time. Oops. Is that supposed to happen? Identifying trends in particular crime types over time. And we'll talk about that later, because some types of crime are increasing. And always as a form of secondary data, not just taking those crime stats at face value. And we'll talk about the different types of data later. So just a few things we pulled out. This is from Rob Reiner's book, and that copy if you ever want to read it. Really boring stuff, but it's good. It's really good. And Rob Reiner is a professor at the London School of Economics. And, you know, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's very accurate. He says that the crime statistics are probably given more debate in the public sphere than anything but lottery numbers. That's what the weight he puts on crime stats. You know, the first line is the most important. The straightforward answer is to a great extent impossible, and we'll go into this even more. At the bottom, Chris Lewis spent 13 years dealing with nothing but police crime stats in the UK, and we've got some papers on his, he's very well known about it. And you know, he says that there's so much that lies behind just the numbers that really most people, when they look at them, they get pretty confused, and I agree with that. So going back, nigh on almost, my math's really bad, almost 200 years, you know what? And every person that goes through every policing program in Canada learns these Peel's principles of policing. Okay? The test of policing efficiency is the absence of crime or disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. So, and David and I go way back. You know, we've kind of followed each other through police service from many, many years ago. And we consider that if we have to go make an arrest, we as a community have failed. Somewhere, school, social services, policing, somewhere we failed. But when there's an absence of crime and disorder, remember those stats are just plummeting. That's what Mr. Peel said almost 200 years ago. That's the test of efficiency of your police service. And there's a reason we still teach this to all our new cadets when they come in. So these are the priority crimes that we use, and we've pulled out and we've identified through our intelligence-led policing program going back to 2009. Raw numbers, you can see it on the bottom. Now this is only that type of call. There's all kinds of other stuff going on, but this is just those priority offenses that we go through every 2 weeks. We review these on an ongoing basis. So the calls on these are down 23% in 6 years, or 5 years, sorry. See, I told you math's really, really bad. Okay? Incident reports are down 19%. And in a lot of cases, these either meet or greatly exceed the national and international standards of what's going on right now. So just on the numbers alone, we're doing a pretty good job. But there's more to come. So the University of New York Law School, Brennan Institute, they took, and this is hot off the press, this came out in February of 2015, and they took 18 theories, they put a think tank together, 18 theories of why are the crime stats going down, why is crime decreasing in the Western world. So academics, police officers, politicians, they put them all together, they went through all these different theories. So the number one that came up with, and the first 2 or 3 pretty much outshine the rest, but we'll go through them. Aging in the Western populations. That in itself, you know, that demographic of the 15 to 25-year-old male that does most crime, we were like that one time, right? But that demographic, that's shrinking, okay? And guess what? The one coming right after it is even smaller. So that's why we say this is going to continue. That opens up whole different, you know, issues down the road. As we become older, we're less able to look after ourselves. Now we turn into the fear of crime. So the fear of crime is rising, but actual crime, reported crime, that crime severity index is dropping. It doesn't matter, you know, go to New York City. Back 10 years ago, they had over almost 2,000 homicides, and now they're down to about 700 a year, 600 a year. Still a lot, but it doesn't matter where you go. Gun crime is down, so that's spread across the Western population. The second one, very pertinent, is the policing initiatives. And again, the top 2 or 3 here really outshone the rest in this study, this review. So data-driven models was given priority. Okay, intelligence-led policing, whatever you want to call it, ComStat, Kent policing model, data-driven models. Paired with, in our situation here, we have a hybrid model where we try to bring in the best of all these policing models, is the social development approaches, PAIR, or SARA, whatever you want to call it, problem-solving models, community policing, the application of the broken windows theory, which David will talk about later. Third one, decrease in alcohol consumption. And any of the police officers in the room, when we were young on the job, every call we went to, they were alcoholics. And it was just complete dysfunction within those homes. You know, mom and dad were both alcoholics. Grandma was an alcoholic. Everybody was an alcoholic. And now we see different issues, right? We see certain types of drugs. We still see some alcoholism, obviously, but it's nowhere near, just anecdotally, it's nowhere near what it used to be. It's not even close. So those are the top three. Okay? There's also a reduction in social acceptance of certain antisocial behaviors. For example, assaults, domestic violence. You know, we talked about the McLean magazine issue. Why are our domestic violence reporting so high? Why? Because we wanted to report it. And we work with our partners to make sure that we know about that. It's not a hidden crime anymore. Okay, we were out there working on it. And the increased reporting is directly related to deterrence theory. So if I know that people are going to report me when I do this, someone's going to call the police, as a general deterrence, I won't do that. And a lot of things that we used to call crime, right? You know, that we used to lock up people with mental health issues, severe mental health issues. Absolutely, that's what we did. Fetal alcohol syndrome, and there's many, many more. You know, the federal government, the corrections has done many, many studies on this, right? There's all kinds of people that were just put in penitentiaries for a long, long time that fetal alcohol syndrome. Okay? Now through training and whatnot, and so now it's a mental health issue, or we work with our partners to try to bring some relief to that family and that social group. So the Brennan Center for Justice concluded in this study, again, in February 2015, that most likely there's no one cause for such widespread dramatic change, that many, many factors are responsible. So just a little bit about the use of statistics. So looking at our stats in the city of St. John Police Force, quantitatively, success is measured by a reduction in police calls to service. We're doing that. Doesn't give the full picture. We marry that up with a qualitative evaluation, citizen feedback through the community consultative process. We have that, the latest into a Reed poll. In fact, 2 in a row. You know, overwhelmingly, the majority of people in the city of St. John feel safe and are happy with the job and the service and the contact, and that'll come back as a theme later, the contact that they get from the St. John Police Force. That's very, very important. So, crime prevention, and again, Mr. Lewis talks about it, that one of the reasons is, again, going back to the Brennan School, is the different types of policing modalities and the efforts put in crime prevention over the last 20 years. And, you know, working from the inside, we've seen that, right, David? You know, different things that we're doing, and especially policing partnerships. And that's going to come back as a theme again later, too. So, understandably, that recorded crime and data sets, they represent a demand called into the police service in most cases. But that, like it says, it only represents a small piece of the work that the police undertake. And that other type of work, when we're looking at crime stats, doesn't always appear. So, in particular, there's a very wide range of proactive activities that we take that are behind those crime stats. And going down through here, we talk about repeat offending, prolific offenders we would call them, victimization, problems of hotspots, i.e. with the work that we've done around our bars and different places, and coming up with specific solutions. And I can't think of any of those things that we do that don't include partners outside the traditional policing role. David?
Collaboration is everything. It's imperative. Everything we do, everything the community services does on a daily basis is all about collaboration. It's always a principle. It's always in the back of our mind. How do we apply those partnerships and collaborations to resolve issues in the community? Constant.
And you're going to see here statistical data that shows that the community expects that from us. They expect us to collaborate. So this allows the police to drive down crime and protect the public, those partnerships. So, sorry, David, I couldn't squeeze a picture of you on here somewhere.
I'm the chubby guy behind there.
So crime, you know what? Prevention and partnerships go together. You can't pull those apart. And if you think David and I have a passion for the stuff we do, because we've been here for almost 30 years, well, maybe. And this stuff works. So I pulled this off the internet. This is from the very first PowerPoint I ever did on crime prevention. And that's a long, long time ago. And this is from the Halton Regional Police Service. When I was a new little officer here, Chief Cogswell, and they sent me to Halton to learn about community-based policing. And we walked and we looked. It was actually during, when it was during the Bernardo. One of our duties, we went on and put up the posters for the missing kids. So then they talk about it. Community policing is a philosophy. Okay, the police officers, citizens always working together, always in partnership, creating ways to solve that community's problems related to crime, fear of crime, social and physical disorder, and neighborhood decay. So this is what I keep alluding to. This is an engagement done by, this was the Home Office, again, in the UK, and I pulled, you know, there's a lot of good work being done here in Canada, a lot of good work being done in the US. Some of these things, you know anything about the UK policing services, they study everything, then they study it again, then they go back and study the two studies, and then they usually have an inquiry about it, and then they study that inquiry. So there's murder cases that went on back in the 60s that they are going and having their third and fourth inquiry. They never stop. But they also produce a lot of very, very good data. So the review by Louise Casey was talking about how do you engage communities to fight crime. They interviewed over 300,000 people. So pretty good data. And our two policing modalities here in the UK, they're very, very similar. They're based on the same values. A lot of the approaches are the same, and a lot of the stuff can go back and forth. So one of the findings was that certain types of crime and disorder that affect people's quality of life actually come to define that little sub-neighborhood. Okay? And you know, we use certain acronyms for different parts of our city. Well, you know, unfortunately, very often it's tied back to a crime type, because that's what we see. And that's what we work so hard to try to change. Okay? So one of the things, and the last line is probably the most important, as important as what we do to defeat crime together is communicating the action. The number one thing that came out of the case report is, I want to know what you're doing about my problem. I want to know. And you'll see at the bottom of the screen why that's so important. 75% of the public, over 300,000 people we talked to, 75% of the public are prepared. They want to help you. They want to make their community safe. We just need to find a way that they can do that. Agencies need to stop buck passing. They do not want to go to Dave Hartley Brown, the police officer, and he said, well, yeah, you know, I'd like to help you, but that's housing. You need to go call them. You know, that's you go talk to the principal Carhart. She'll look after. That's not, you know, it's not a policing thing. We only deal with policing. The community says, no, I'm bringing you my problem. I want you to fix it. I want you to address it. I want you to tell me what you're doing about it. They want a collective approach. The community understands it's not just all cops. It's not just all school. They understand that. Traditionally, police. That's why a lot of this stuff happened in the UK. This review. No, that's not police work. This is police work. And the real reason behind that, the UK for a long time was driven by performance standards. And what they found, that the coppers knew, I should deal with this, but this is how I'm being measured. So I will deal with this. So now I'm a good cop. And the community went, you need to deal with what we tell you is our problem. David, you were involved way back years ago when we first went into community policing, and we just didn't know what to do. So we went up and talked to them at the Imperial, and they said, yeah, you can have our, Chief, you were inspector back then. He said, what are you getting me into? So we went up, and we sat up there, and we went around and passed out little handbills, and we asked people to come in, and we put the big stickies on the wall and said, what are your problems? Well, nobody said murder. Nobody said robberies. There was three things. Skateboarders, traffic, squealing around uptown, and panhandling. That was the three things. And I went, wow. I thought it was about murder and stuff, but it wasn't. So we have a skateboard park, we have a panhandling bylaw, plus we got a lot of people in the rehab, and we created a traffic unit. So that's what they wanted. Big one, citizens need to hear from, be able to contact and influence the priorities of their neighborhood police, which provides for policing legitimacy. So I accept you as my police, I will cooperate with you, I will give you tips, and you'll see how that becomes very, very important down the road here. I will give you statements, I trust you, I will support you with budgets, I will support you with everything that you need, but you just need to listen to me. Time for a break?
No. That wasn't too long, actually. Better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh.
A few of us. Crescent Valley, everyone's familiar with Crescent Valley, I'm sure, by now. And,
Where is
where exactly is it? I can tell you this much. Back in 2008, 2007, 2008, I decided to change my career path and to go into community policing. I was an investigator for about 6 years, and I enjoyed that immensely for what it gave me. But I started learning a lot of different things with the people I was interviewing or interrogating and questioning, and I learned about the reasons why they commit the crimes they do. And it got back to me thinking about the root cause of crime. If we could deal with the root cause of crime, we would prevent crime to some extent. So this opportunity came to go into community policing, and I took it. And I decided there was an opportunity to go to Crescent Valley. And when I look at that picture, it's different the way you're looking at it than I am, because I'm looking at that as growth. So much growth. As Jen would probably say the same thing. We see this, when I went in that neighborhood, I didn't have an office in the neighborhood. I worked out of the North End Station on Somerset Street, and I decided, what am I going to do? As Jim and I would say, what do I need to do? What's my role? What's my function here? And so I decided to go down. I walked through the neighborhood. I made my observations, engaged whoever I could find in the neighborhood, whether it be in the stores, the corner stores, what have you, at the school, and churches, what would it be? And I walked around, and I just said, you know, people are looking at me like, what's this guy doing? What's he walking? What's he checking out? And I'm up and down the street, and I'm taking notes. But then I went to my first meeting with the Tenants Association, which is a branch, another local business or group in that neighborhood. And I went to the first meeting, and the question I asked was, what do I need to establish trust with the community? And the answer was, if my children trust you, we will trust you. So I've never forgotten that. And the very next day, I went full tilt with everything I could, with all the gumption. I went down to the school. I met with every child that walked through the door. Introduced myself, tap, high fives, whatever you need to do to engage. And I spent about 3 weeks doing that. Lunchtime, whatever, getting to know their names. Half of them I forget. But guess what? They didn't forget my name. And a lot of them still don't. And I'm not even working in that area anymore, specifically. But what was funny is I go back to my second meeting, and first thing comes out of one of the people working there was, my daughter met you. She thinks you're great. Or my son met you. He thinks you're a nice person. You know, and all of a sudden, those barriers don't become as thick anymore. They move away. And as you start to get to know people for who they are, and they get to know you as a real person, then there's an opportunity to have a good rapport and develop a trust. And from that, it just snowballed into so many positive things. Yeah, there's been some, you know, some barriers here and there, but overall, the experience that I've had down there, and that we continue as a police agency to have with Crescent Valley, is positive. It's been fantastic. I can't say enough about our partnerships with housing. As you see, I mean, when I look at an issue like this, and I went around one day and documented, we'll say, 20 tags in different areas of the community. And I simply contacted the housing, had a meeting, brought the pictures down and said, what can we do about that? I said, because it's like the broken window theory. If you leave it, it increases other activity and criminal behavior, and people get a sense of no one cares anymore. Why would we bother to do anything? Other people who go through the neighborhood look at it as a blemish to the community or St. John community. And in fact, empty housing, they bought into that. They said, you know what, you're right. And they went down within a week. They had it all covered over. Wow, it was great. Stop signs were cleared up. The graffiti was gone. Yeah. Actually, you can go back a second. Sorry.
Can't go back.
Maybe.
So that was just a small little thing. Not a huge problem-solving issue. It was resolved very quickly. Some problem-solving things that Jim and I and others get involved in take months. They're more complex and involve more people and more resources. But that's something very simple. And as you look around there, you'll see the officer engaged in school activities. You'll see volunteers. That splash pad, when I went to Crescent Valley and Fleming Court, just a lawn, green space. People hanging out, people at nighttime, midnight, 2 in the morning, drunk, throwing bottles down there, drug activity going on. What can we do with that green space and make it more positive? Well, it's not for me to decide. It's for the community to say, what do we want down there? So when we bring the young people in, what would you like to see in this green space? It's the young people who decided they wanted a splash pad. It was the adults and other corporate sponsors who decided they want to invest in the community. And that's what you have today. And it hasn't been damaged. It hasn't been vandalized because the ownership from the community and from the youth has made it a positive experience for everybody. When I look at the blue building, as it's known, the blue building, the resource center, when that came in, some of the windows were actually broken out the first week. They thought it was a police station. They thought there were cells downstairs. And there's been so many people after that. But you know what? It only happened once. It happened one time. That was it. And it's been a great resource for the community. And so many different partners over the years have been there. So when I look at all these pictures and I look up here and I see a cleanup involving Hazen White School and parents, and I think, I can't remember what year it was, Jen, if you recall when the new sidewalks were put in?
I want to say 2008.
8 or 9 or something like
yeah.
that. When those sidewalks went into those communities, wow, it was like they paved the road in gold. It was so nice. They came out of their streets and told me, wow, there was a sense of pride when they were walking in. It's funny what some of these things can do. And so, again, as I look at that, we've come a long ways. And we're still going further, and we're still going in a positive direction. So I'm pleased with that. And as we're talking about some of the graffiti, same thing. People took an invested interest. We've had other times where kids themselves have been involved helping us clean up. So they're buying into that. And when the kids get involved, some of these teen vandalism issues seem to decrease once they buy into these issues. You can never overlook the kids in the neighborhood. I don't wish he did, but Jim put that in there. I don't like that. I'm not keen on that stuff. In 2013, the St. John Police Force conducted a major street level enforcement project, and they targeted several street level dealers in the priority neighborhoods. A lot of those targets were identified by the community officers. Again, people coming into the building, coming into the office, or out in the street, and hey Dave, or whoever, and you know, this guy down the street, you know, the cars are going there every 10 minutes. You know, I've got little ones here that have to watch it. I have to smell it from upstairs. Can we do something? Can we do something about it? What can we do? You know, and we work together within our own organization. We identify these targets. We share that intel information with our street crime units, with our managers, whatever. Hey, listen, let's put something together here. It's tangible. We can do it, and we can make an effective response to this issue. And so we're lucky that, and that was a great thing. I was really pleased with that. Again, that trust is still there, and we're still every single day, whether it be myself or another community officer, receiving information about a situation. Maybe not drugs every day, but it could be anything. Then we were asked about what is a community services unit, and Jim and I always say this the same thing. We do whatever it takes. It's simple as that. I was asked 6 or 7 times on vacation, what do you do for a living? A police officer. What do you do? Problem solver. That's all I answer. That's how I do it. They pay me money to try to solve some problems. Whether I can do it, I try to do the best I can with the resources we have, and I think we do a bang-up job. I think we do what we have. I have to give credit to the management team for giving us the autonomy to do what we do. It's always been great. That's been number one thing, because people here buy into what we're trying to accomplish. Problem solving, as Jim mentioned, that's it. It's number one right there. The broken windows, we're trying to prevent that from happening, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. Identify the issues right away, whether we identify them in the community, a resident, organization recognizes certain situations, we respond. Generating and fostering partnerships, can't do it alone. St. John Police Force cannot do it alone. It needs everybody's help. And that's an individual resident or a group. Our partnerships, we're fortunate to have a great partnership with the Englefield South School District, the School Hazen White, with NB Housing, you name it. People we parachute into the neighborhood from Community Health, from UNBSJ, Horizon Health. People are bringing their resources, working with the community officers and other groups to make an effective change in the neighborhood. So it's been really a positive experience. Intelligence, it's always important. Some people want to become coded sources. Others just want to give me a phone call. They don't even want to leave their name. They just call me up and say, "Are you Dave?" "Yeah. Yeah, the guy down the street, he's selling whatever on his trunk every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. Okay, bye." You know, and maybe we go down and sure enough, there's something there. Sometimes it isn't, but it's interesting how I can tell you the one thing I take huge pride in, and in all sincerity, is when someone calls me or comes into the office who I've never met, and they say, "Are you Dave?" Yes, yeah. And they said, "A friend of mine said we could trust you." When someone tells me that, and that I've never met, and then they go on to tell me something very significant, and it could be anything from being a victim of domestic violence to drugs or whatever. So to hear that, I always hang up with a kind of smirk in my, go, wow, that it really works, right? And so that's really important. And sharing that intel with our other partners in the force is great too as well. Enforcement, as Jim has mentioned, we work with public safety, doing the bar district enforcement, panhandling, deal with some bylaw issues and noise and bylaw. If the community says, look, there's an issue with a traffic issue going on, speeding, what have you, in the priority neighborhoods, we'll deal with that as well. We'll deal with that working with our traffic enforcement officers, as well as street crime. I mean, we've worked with everybody within our own organization to address the issues, whatever they may be. Threat assessments, again, a few years back, we partnered with Anglais South School District. It was District 9 at that time, I think, back then, before the change. And we developed a threat assessment protocol, VITRA, Violent Threat Assessment. And that's been a huge thing. That's really gone into, it used to be only 1 or 2 calls a year. Now it's 1 or 2 calls maybe a week. And so we're getting calls, and I should go back a little bit. Every single day, every community officer reviews every file in their area. So any file that's generated within their priority neighborhood, they have to review, see where they can make any kind of significant impact or intervention to deal with that situation that the responding officer couldn't do in the course of an investigation. So if a young person brought a knife to school and the officer responded, did the appropriate response, we may review and say, what else can we do with that young person to engage them and to do the intervention, or work with other agencies to respond to that needs to reduce and increase behavior. And follow-ups. Just like I said, that's probably very important. And getting back to people, as Jim mentioned before, if someone's telling you something or reporting something, call them back. Let them know where you're at with that situation. Boy, that means a lot to people. It's been 2 weeks. I haven't heard back from the police. You should hear back right away. This is what we've done so far. This is where we're at. This is the status of the investigation, and this is what we're trying to do, and on such and such a time. And I think that's important too, because that's part of that trust and that building that relationship with everyone. And just being a liaison with the neighborhood between the force and the community we work with. So, wish I brought water. Partnership policing, just a couple. That's all right. Yeah, I don't think so. You go ahead. Back in 2009, the force looked at some of the priority offenses that were there, and through intelligence-led policing, they identified. I'm sorry, Jim. This was the motor vehicle thefts.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And we saw this from 2009 to 2014. We saw a reduction of 38%. We realized those motor vehicle thefts. Priority offenses through intelligence-led policing. We realized a lot of them involved car prowls, people looking to see what other things they could steal from a vehicle or remove because of temptation. Really, the issue with motor vehicle theft at that time back then was that people were just simply leaving the keys in the car. It's just a behavioral thing and an opportunity for somebody who may have been going in looking for one thing, found the keys in the car, used it for transportation, or just to steal it for parts, what have you. And so we launched the Lock It and Pocket campaign in 2009. And basically an awareness campaign to prevent and to remind people to lock your cars and to remove your valuables. And again, we're getting back to who can we get involved in this type of situation to partner with. CAA at this point in time became a great partner with us, providing placards, what have you, to signage on our city transit buses. And it was so successful that it became an award-winning initiative and recognized by the Crime Prevention Association of Brunswick. So and it's still unknown. We're still using this. I think so. Has anybody seen those signs we have out there, lock and pocket signs? Mm-hmm. You'll see them. Oh yeah, they're great because they're colorful. They catch the eye. And we just got a call today again. Somebody in the private business something wanted some of those signs, purchase them. So they're still quite popular. Same thing with the assaults. We looked at the assaults in 2009 and saw bar-related incidents. And some school-related. And as I mentioned before already about how we address some of the things at the schools, obviously we do some education and awareness, and we have excellent lines of communication with all our principals and vice principals from middle schools to high schools primarily. And so when they have a situation and they are looking for some clearance or what they can do or responses, they're not hesitant to call us up and discuss it. And together we work at these situations, what can we do and what interventions need to be put in place. When we talk about the bar violence reduction, we developed what we call the Partners for Foot Patrol. And Jim's just going to pass out an example of how that was started. And basically what we did is we went to the bar district restaurants and some of the local bars in the uptown area, and we asked them if they would want to partner with us and support having some officers specifically detailed to the bar district during certain periods of time. I think it was, what's the time, Jim? It's usually still...
Yeah, it's usually towards the end
End of
of
the
the
night.
bar, they're closing, and then kind of eking into the middle.
Yeah, it's like a 4-hour period type of. And they're specifically going around the bars, they're going in, engaging the owners and bartenders, letting the patrons see that the police artifact around and nearby. That mere presence has a reduction in crime in itself. And I think the investment, even with the staffing at the bars, knowing that the police are coming and going, it kind of keeps everybody in check as far as who's coming into the bar. We don't want underage patrons in there. We don't want people over-serving. And we've had, Jim and I have engaged a lot of meetings here in this building with our bar district representatives, and that's been quite successful. And we continue with that partnership now.
Example, David. A big part of this program is not just putting police officers on the street. A big part of this is we had a big meeting here earlier this year. We had all the bar owners that wanted to engage with us. You know, that kind of have two choices. We'd like to work together because this puts money in their pocket. The bars will close if people go there and get hurt. And there is a chance for significant injury around bars and in the areas outside of bars. So this room was packed. And out of that meeting, you probably saw in the newspaper, there was a little piece about a guy got caught with some weapons here on Saturday night. That came from one of the people who was in this room. And after we had apprehended a suspect, one of our officers got a text and said, look in the snowbank across from the old city hall. And that guy was sitting right here that night. So that's where it comes from. And you know what? If you saw the weapon, you wouldn't want to get with it. So that's the kind of partnership we have. And we did some follow-up with these people. We go in and we sit down with all the people in the bar and we say, you know what? This is what's good. This is what we can do. Just give them a little bit of understanding about the defense of their property and what they are allowed to do. And what we see is we used to have places that, you know, would be going and lugging drunks out and fights all night. What they do now is they call us. When they get a guy come in, they're not comfortable handling him, they call us. And that's what we want. We want them to call us. And the violence around the bars is plummeted. In fact, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take over your day, but the very first year, and these stats were done purposely after the beats were over. After the beats were over. That's 1 year. Now, the issue is when you drop your assaults by 67%, you can't do it the next year too. But it has continued to decline. In fact, I mean, whatever term you want to use, when we used to work the uptown car, we didn't stop fighting. No, I know, but we didn't. We didn't stop fighting all night. On Friday and Saturday night, we did not stop fighting all night. And now, you know what? You get 1 or 2 minor scuffles or 1 assault. And that's people not getting victimized. And you know, when you have people that want to come in and live, work, and play, they listen to the radio, they listen about the violence, and I'm not going to take my wife out and go somewhere if someone's going to get, you know, grease me out. So
I think that's an investment by the bar owners too, that they want their clients to have a nice time, a safe time. I think we all want that. And so for them to know that we're there and we're dedicated 2 officers to be in those areas, it reassures them about that safety factor as well.
Right, this is the pamphlet from the first year. And if you read into it, it says what's in it for them. Right? And they do buy into it. That's why this room was packed.
And just as a sort of a piggyback to all this, we've enhanced our partnership with public safety for compliance officers. So now we're going out with those people as well, and they have their own regulations and rules that they have to enforce. But going in there now with those folks and dealing with those issues, you're taken quite serious now by everybody there, and they appreciate it. They all lay their violations when they see if it's necessary, but that communication's always there. They're calling us up. You know, if we had a problem that you may not have been aware of it, or Jim, they'll call us up, and we'll work with them all the time as well. So that's been really good. Again, it's all about collaboration and bringing those resources that are already available.
One of the biggest changes in this internally for us is that, and there's many years of research, and you know what, bar fights is one of the most studied aspects of policing in the world. People just, and it is normalized. People, they said it was a fight around the park, yeah. But people get hurt, people get killed. And the biggest change that I've seen in both Inspector Parks and Deputy McCluskey have been very, very much involved in this program. In fact, they started the foot patrol. That was their idea. Within the St. John Police Force now, the vernacular is, nobody arrested. Now I go into the bar, you get people like Sergeant Orem and Sergeant Cooper and these people going into the bars and talking to people. Oh yeah, there was a tall guy here earlier, a guy with the white hat, and you hear it on the radio all the time, and they grab the guy, and now nobody gets assaulted, we don't have a victim. So people have a good time.
I think what's good about that too, those individuals that unfortunately we do have to arrest and put on conditions, we are putting them on conditions not to be in those bar districts. So that puts, some restraints on them, conditions to keep them out of those areas. And in fact, it's proven to work because they're being checked in those areas. They're found when they're not supposed to be, and all of a sudden you just prevented a person going on a bench and probably getting in another fight or some type of situation or a domestic situation, and probably protected somebody from a serious injury. And again, that program itself again was recognized for part of the Crime Prevention Association of Brunswick. These are just a few initiatives that are ongoing. There's so many things, and I know it's been long already, but there's so many partnerships that we have, and so many exciting things that we're working on right now that I think are going to benefit the entire St. John community, and certainly a reflection of all the good work by all the police officers in the St. John Police Force.
Thank you, David. Promise it won't be too much longer, but this is important. Intelligence-led policing and community policing initiatives, in particular, creating those partnerships, I'm going to say fostering partnerships. It's okay to have people into a meeting, but then if you don't follow it up, they lose their confidence in you and they won't come back next one. You know what? That's the one from the first year. That took a ton of work. But go back to our crime stats are down, but there's no file. You can't make a file of that, but that's what's behind it. That's the qualitative part of the evaluation of the research. That took, and we're still doing it. We go into the bars every night.
There's no secret. Community policing is very difficult to measure. It is what it is. I can't measure, and I certainly don't write down that I had a 3-minute conversation on the phone or a 10-minute conversation or meeting with 5 or 6 different representatives from the community. But those things do take time, and they do take time to deal with, and sometimes the situations can be resolved very quickly, and sometimes, as Jim and I both know, they can take months. The problem is so complex, and it takes a lot of time and effort, but it's difficult to measure. But the outcomes are worth it.
So as crime continues to decrease for many reasons like we talked about, the demands on our officer goes up. So what's that big silver question mark? What fills that void or fills that space? So our approach to neighborhood-based policing, partnership policing, is consistent with the priorities established through the New Brunswick Roundtable on Crime Prevention, on Crime and Public Safety in 2011. And 3 priorities out of that roundtable, and that's ongoing, are youth at risk, chronic repeat offenders, and domestic intimate partner violence. And these 3 challenges decidedly affect the quality of life in our priority neighborhoods. Okay, you've got kids that are out of control. You have those chronic repeat offenders that just keep coming back. That's the basis of intelligence-led policing. A small group of people that just keeps going out and offending. Well, you'll see later we're going to try to figure out why. And domestic intimate partner violence. There is a ton. I know, Brian, you're very aware of it, Tanya. That so much of the disorder in our neighborhoods goes back to dysfunctional families. And I firmly believe that. So, David says we're always coming up with new stuff. There's many terms for this. This is not something specifically this is one version of it. We call it the Neighborhood Offender Management Strategy. So starting at the end of April, the community officers in all 5 priority neighborhoods will have 5 files, 5 priority offenders to manage. And they will go in and they will work with all those partners over there. And there's probably a lot that I didn't have room to put in. And they will figure out, why does Mr. Smith keep going back to jail? Why do we keep going to 102 Jones Street? Why are we there? Is there an issue with mental health? Is there an issue, why are the kids not in school? Because they're going to be youth at risk. So we're going to take those 5 top people, and we're going to try to manage them. Some places they call it wraparound policing or whatever, but we're going to try to manage those. So those community officers are going to really, really be sinking their teeth into trying to decrease, you know what, that's probably disorder, and just calm that neighborhood. Another one that we're very, it's too bad we have to do it, but we're excited to do it. And this just grew yesterday exponentially, and I'll explain that after. Under the Crime Prevention Action Fund, measures to address extreme prostitution. This is the change in federal legislation, Section 213 of the Criminal Code, communicating for the purpose of prostitution. So with the changes and the challenges to the Supreme Court, the federal government has come out with their new version of Section 213, but they also put a big pot of money out there to try to deal with the underpinning issues behind prostitution. No matter what anybody says, the prostitution issue in the city of St. John is not what it is in Toronto. Our girls and guys that have worked the street, we call it the survival sex trade. We came up with that with our partners. They're horribly addicted, mental health, chronic abuse cases. There is no glamour to the prostitution scene in the city of St. John. And if anybody says there is, they do not know what they're talking about. We have a whole different issue going on here. These people need help, and we agree with that. At the same time, we need to keep order in the community. It's a really, really, really fine balancing act. So the partners to the Crime Prevention Fund are very encompassing. And yesterday we just included,
Kidhicky?
Yes,
Housing.
housing alternatives, right?
Housing first.
Thank you. Not very often lost words. Housing alternatives and their Housing First initiative, and it ties directly in with this. It's going to be great. It's a 5-year funding partnership to deal with the issues behind prostitution, and really, really important is to stop young girls from dysfunctional families, from chronically addicted families, to entering on the street. And we see, David and I have done a large number of operations up there, going back probably 5 or 6 years, and the stories are just tragic. They are just tragic. But before all this happened, the cops only do one thing: we can arrest you, and then put you in jail, keep you safe for a little while, and then you come back up. So this is really great. And to put all of these people in the same room and get them to get along and agree, we should have gotten an award for that one. But
I think it's important to
it's great,
recognize.
and they're all on board, and they're moving full speed ahead, and they're really excited.
Yeah, I think a lot of agencies now and organizations, because I've had the comment made over the last few months, which I find interesting, and they've commented on St. John Police Force saying, you guys are ahead of us. We're just buying into that philosophy of that conservation. So they're all starting to do that and recognize that, whatever agency they may be. And that's evident from what you see right there, a willingness by everyone to participate and problem solve and to bring some stability and normalcy to an area where things are a little dysfunctional.
So that preventative work that we talk about, that's, I mean, I've said this now probably about 10 times, that's not captured by forces. We can't sit around all day writing down every meeting that I had and every person I talked to. I read one story in one of the trade magazines where they talked about a police service where they were doing 8-hour shifts, and they spent over 3 hours a day documenting what they did, not doing reports, documenting what they did. It's how I spent my time. We used to have running sheets. I used to write them down until they got a new chief, and he said, do we have rocks in our head? That's 3 hours times 20 people a day you can go on the street. So, but that's what they did. So that work that we do, that preventative work, is not captured by a national data set. But it does reduce crime, and it does pull, it is dependent on the public initiative demand on the police. But if the preventative activity is not maintained, there is a risk of that downward trend. That's what's behind, that's what the studies say, that's behind that downward trend in crime. If we can't keep that preventative activity going on, and again, it takes a lot of time, that downward trend will not continue. And this is out of the document here. I do have a couple of copies. Anybody wants to read it again? It's a little bit dry, but it's hot off the press, 2015. And this is an analysis estimating the demand on police service from the College of Policing. And that's an internationally known think tank, academics, police officers, and they study everything policing. So the recent analysis by the College of Policing has yielded a number of hypotheses on the changing nature of what we do every day. So these are pretty interesting. Crime, again, as reflected in performance statistics, only represents a very small piece of what we do. There are many new types of crime emerging. Internet fraud. I was at my mom's house the other day. She's 90 years old, and I get the call from whatever his name was, and your Windows isn't working properly. Windows, of course they are. So Windows my mom has. She's 90 years old. Anyway, he was trying to pull. He needed a credit card and all that kind of stuff, right? So those are things we're dealing with. Those, as we become more connected, those things are going to keep improving. Internet harassment, Facebook harassment. Being a watch commander, I can tell you that we will get 4, 5, 6 of those a night. And there's a lot of work behind that, a lot of work. So those things are probably going to increase. As the public acceptance or disapproval of domestic violence, sexual assault, childhood sexual abuse, as that decreases, as the disapproval increases, people are going to come forward, and we get them all the time. Historic sexual assaults. People are coming forward now in increasing numbers, and that's a huge, huge piece of work, but it has to be done. And the non-crime demand on police has increased. I'm going to show you something that's just staggering here after. Has increased, and that really represents now a bigger piece of what police do than crime. But a lot of it is related to what we call vulnerability and public protection, mental health, okay, missing persons. And the statutory and strategic responsibility demands have not decreased. In some cases, they've increased. There's been a lot of work done on this, and estimates go anywhere from in the mid-90s, what it took a copper an hour to do, now is 6 to 8 to 10 hours. Get me a breathalyzer on a Friday night when I want to be out doing all that other stuff at the bars to make sure everybody's all safe. And so an accident in there, a minor accident, you're probably talking 6 to 8 hours. Just for 2 people. So these, the paperwork, the notices of intention, it just skyrocketed. And Inspector Parks, probably twice a week you're sending out some kind of a new document we have to serve. So it just, sometimes you just want to. So as a result of all these things, importantly at the bottom, the capacity for discretionary activity has been reduced. And that's very, very important, because that's what we have to do, that discretionary activity. So very, very quickly here, a medium risk, just to give you an example, a medium risk missing person. So it's not someone that says they're going to go out and jump off the bridge tonight. It's not a first timer. It's someone that maybe goes missing, just doesn't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Maybe I got grounded. Maybe they don't want me hanging around with Johnny, so I take off. And you know what? Pretty typical. 48 hours. The national statistics say that most come back between 24 and 48 hours. They come back okay. But there's a whole lot of things that kick into place. So this study was done by Karen Shalev Green and Francis Pikes. And Karen Shalev Green actually is a colleague of Craig Bennell, who you were given a briefing about the Carleton University study. Okay, so that's a colleague of his. And this is the first time this was ever done from the Center for the Study of Missing Persons. And she's an expert on this. And they quantitated the amount of investment the police service makes. And you can see it in big bold letters. So taking the report, following up with every tip, going back, solid tips, questionable tips. What do you call them? We get the calls from Toronto and Calgary about the people that, I saw a vision and he's over there and he's, anyway, those guys.
Medium.
Medium, yeah. Not quite so. So I take the file, I give it to Sergeant Brown, he gives it to his constable, they document everything they did, we pass on to the next one. That the total time that we invested as a police service is greater than the person was missing. And then they walk in the morning, I'm back, I got hungry, I came home. So that's fine. So it's nothing. We have a board in our squad room over here. It's nothing to have. There's always one, maybe two, and there's nothing to have 3 or 4. So on a weekend, add it up. Almost there. So as resource levels fall, and that's the other thing, as crime goes this way, resources and police services are falling. In some places they're drastic. There's a risk that the remaining resources will be taken up with those reactive demands, the missing persons and all those calls that come in for service. Okay? And that means less resources are available for preventive work and discretionary activity. That's all this stuff, all that problem solving, the stuff behind that drop. And again, if the preventive activity is not maintained, just cut right down to the bottom, the downward trend in some crime types, which is likely is real, of that problem solving will not continue. That's why it's so important that, like these things are very, very personnel intensive. And going back to, again, 200 years ago, the basic mission of why we exist is to prevent crime and disorder. That's been debated forever, right? But that's 200 years ago, still pretty valid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of the first part.
Excellent. Yeah. Very good. Any, yes, yeah, John?
I just want to make a comment to this because it's so very important. Like when I first became a counselor, I would go to a meeting, for priority neighborhood, whether it be, Crescent Valley or One Change or wherever. And what are the police doing here? Like, what's going on? And it's like now, it's just like, where's David? Or, it's like, it's so obvious to the people that are in those neighborhoods, and Jennifer, too. And, I go into at Christmas time, I went to a Christmas dinner down at Hasten White, and the Palace programs put it on, and all of the community officers that used to go to that school were showing up, and the kids were calling them by name. Oh, there's Sergeant David, I haven't seen you in years, And I mean, I'm just thinking, wow, what an impact, And then I get people telling me about it, They're telling me their stories about these community police officers that changed their life. And that's where you really notice it. Your biggest advocates is the communities that you serve in, because they see it on a daily basis and they really see the difference that it makes. And I was at a meeting, and you were at the same meeting, where Scott Crawford showed us a chart.
Yes.
Remember the chart?
Yeah.
And before this all started, the crime rate in the Old North End was up here. And then we put the program in place, and it came down, it came down, it came down. David, I don't know what happened. I wasn't around.
It stopped for a bit, and then it took a spike.
And then it took a big spike.
Yeah.
And what happened for that?
It was after the fire that it stopped or something on the Old North End. I think we didn't have an officer right there
Yeah.
or something. So there was spiking crime and calls for service.
Yeah.
Once we reestablished our connection and position in the community,
Yeah.
it started right back down again, going down.
Yeah, I
So
knew
it was
something
really,
like
it was an interesting graph that showed.
It was a telltale graph, is what it was, Anyway, I just wanted to say that, because I find this very, very interesting.
It is.
And I think that the time that we spend in preventing crime, if you have to spend 2 hours in the bar neighborhood to prevent one atrocious fight that's going to tie you up for 6 or 8 hours and somebody's going to end up in the hospital, it's money well spent. That's the way I'm looking at it. So, and I was involved, and Jim, you were on duty the night that I went out, and I can tell you, you go to a call where you got 400 students in an arena, and they're not happy with each other, and you got 6 officers roaming around, and you're thinking, why did I pick tonight to go out on this little island, But the strategies and the relationships and the way they interact, and that whole, it was a situation, it was quelled, and then it was dispersed, and it could have been, if they wasn't the right people in the right place, it could have been so bad in so many ways. And I just am very impressed with the way the officers handle themselves with the training, how they put that to good use. So I just wanted to say that.
I just think it was important that the police, we show that we value the community
And when we do that, with sincerity, of course, they value the police as well.
Mhm.
It's a two-way, it's back and forth. And I've seen that, and I've witnessed it over and over again. Like you say, when they know you, they're looking for you in the crowd. We're so-and-so, and they come into the meeting tonight. You're part of that community, right? And
Yeah.
that's what our goal was, to establish ourselves in those communities and be there for whatever the needs may be.
And I met with Jocelyn McIntyre, a terrific young officer who just got into the community policing in the Old North End. And I went over on her first day, and of course, Tony Arsenault was with her, showing her the ropes and everything. And he had to go away on a call, and she said, "You got a minute?" And I said, "Yeah." And she just went through all of the stuff that she said, "This is the stuff that I want to do." Blah, blah, blah. So I can help you, let me know, but you're just overwhelmed with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But so much enthusiasm.
Passion.
Yeah. So anyway, I said enough.
Excellent.
Good. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you very
Yeah.
much for doing this.
No problem.
Like you
Yeah.
really
Thank you for having
captured everything that, it's obvious you're both very passionate about what you do, and that's conveyed with the team that you're surrounded with, and I obviously have the good fortune of being on the receiving end of that, but I think the biggest takeaway for me, and you hit it, is you folks do an exceptional job not just bringing the partners to the table, but facilitating those conversations and fostering those relationships, because it's not about bringing people to the table, that's just one piece,
Mhm.
but it's about the continued relationship, and I can't thank you enough, that was excellent.
Yeah.
Just make a comment before our members leave, but so you're right, you see the enthusiasm, and so when new members or members are thinking about to go into community policing, one of the first emails that we see before there's even people are applying, it's David Hartley Brown says, "If you're interested in this unit, you come and see me right away, because David is passionate about the unit, and he wants people in there that really want to be a part of this." And at the end of the day, and David's used the words collaboration, building partnerships, but that doesn't happen unless you have the trust. And if you build that trust, that people will want to get on board and do those type of things that are necessary to make that community where it should be. And so the passion here, the drive and the desire to do that comes from David, and that transcends to those members. And he's on top of those folks all the time. And as you see him today, that there is no change. That, when we're at meetings or community meetings, whatever the case may be, David is very enthusiastic. And the folks that transition through community policing over 3-4 year period start with enthusiasm and leave with enthusiasm. And so it's hugely positive. It generates a lot of work in terms of what they do to grab that community and make it a better place. And I think at the end of David says it absolutely right. What do you do? Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't echo that any better than the way David's explaining. So I want to thank Dave and Jim. Excellent presentation, guys. Way too long. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Great job, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
It's funny, we had the presentation on Monday at our senior executive meeting, and David was, Jim was going through a lot of stuff, and I said, go easy on some of this stuff, we'll be there all night. So he had to try to tweak it to manage time, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, the impact is obvious, and I think he said, it's hard to measure, it's hard to quantify, but when you go through a presentation like that,
Yeah.
the impact and the results kind of
So I
speak
want to
for
thank the
themselves.
board for requesting the presentation, because it clearly assists
Yeah.
and explains to the community the work
Yeah.
that these folks do day in and day out.
Yeah, excellent investment. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we just have a couple of items left on the agenda. So item 9.1, the internal monthly report, that's on page 83 of our packages.
So for the month of February, there were 0 complaints, 0 complimentary correspondence, and 2 grievances. Receive and file.
Receive, motion to receive and file?
So moved.
And second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and item 9.2, so this is a report on the review on the McNeil report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward, folks.
Yeah.
Bit of a preamble, but we've given you sort of recommendations and comments on those recommendations. And there are about seven recommendations that we have to build some structure on, if you will. But the most significant would be the issue around the deployment of carbines and those vests, because there is going to be an investment, a capital investment there, and a training investment. So those are the rest between our PIO, Public Information Officer, working with our folks. Those are easy dues, and the other really comes down to MDBs, that software packages and all that stuff for mapping the internet, etc. And we certainly can do that as well. So there's 9 recommendations, and some of those are housed within our strategic plan for 2015 and beyond, and so we'll certainly get at that.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Just one comment. I looked at these recommendations, a lot of them are operational, but it just shows to me how we are taking, the mental illness so seriously, and how it affects the whole community. When we put this into our strategic plan, that we're actually going to have some sort of a program that's strategically thought out. That shows vision to me, because it's a real issue, and I'm glad to see that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also internal. It's external, but internal. We have to look after our members as well, and that's hugely important. And I know Deputy McCluskey has been looking at that, this mental readiness and the issues that are around that, and how we ensure that our members are feeling well, coming to work well, and in the day-to-day interactions that they are, if there are any issues or concerns, that it's looked after. So we have to ensure that we're doing that as well. So hugely important stuff, and as they say, it all takes time.
Yeah, well,
Very good. Okay, any other questions or comments? No?
Receive and
Okay,
file. Yeah.
motion to receive and file. Jennifer, second?
second.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and that was it for our open session agenda, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.